Khafre, give us your pitch. Like, what is Hip Hop for Change all about?
Yeah, I mean, straight up, to be quite honest, I think a lot of people think of hip hop, they think of music, but hip hop is not music. Hip hop is my culture. Hip hop is how I engage with the world. It's how I walk. You can see it. It's how I talk. You know, it's my vernacular. It's the terminology we use to pass information in our community. It's how I dress. I look hip hop, right? You know what I'm saying? It's how I dance. It's how I paint. It's how I engage in the world. So when you look at hip hop through that context, it's kind of, you know, you kind of see that three corporations owning 90% of the means of producing hip hop narratives is not really a healthy thing to be happening. And that all happened through the 96 Telecommunications Act. Signed by Bill Clinton, which allowed for the corporate consolidation of media. And so now we got three companies owning 90% of the depiction of my culture. And the problem is the community hip hop comes from is not rich. So if you have a $7 billion industry that's, you know, putting up depictions of hip hop and Black and brown culture as well, they're not going to make money from our community, right? They're going to make money from people who have money. Right now, about 70% of hip hop is bought by suburban white men between 18 and 24. Those kids, they buy what they believe, right? And now, you know, a lot of people eat Taco Bell, right? But nobody thinks that Taco Bell is Mexican culture. You know what I'm saying? Like they totally get that paradigm. But I think historically, since birth of a nation, people have been believing representations of Black and brown people in the media that aren't created by Black and brown people. Now, I think people get it twisted because they say, oh, well, aren't those rappers rapping about that stuff? Well, very small percentage of hip hop community raps about objectifying women and shooting people up. Like, no, we're real people. Most of our rappers talk about our lives, right?
Yeah.
But I think when you are selling, you know, anything in America, you sell that through sex, drugs, and violence. It's pervasive in even Carl's Jr. commercials, right? And All My Children and heavy metal and whatever. It's just what people sell. But when you are only investing in the small portion of narratives that is pathological, but coupled with a brown face, that's really bad. It's bad because we're more segregated than we've ever been in this nation's history. And right now, 70% of white people report not having a person of color for a friend. So that doesn't mean they stop having opinions about people like me. You know, when I walk down the street, I'm passing people in Berkeley and you know, in Hayes and Octavia in San Francisco, and people grab their babies. They grab their babies as they walk past me. I don't think I look scary, but you know, I because I have to deal with it some way. I tell people nowadays, I don't eat babies, I'm full, right?
I'm full.
You know? And it kind of wakes them up, you know, but I have to say something. But my question is, where does this so deeply ingrained response that it's like literally a reflex, where does that come from? Because they haven't had dinner with me. They haven't they don't know that I've taught 22,000 kids K through 12. They don't know that I'm a father, you know what I'm saying? They don't know that I'm an educator and an activist, but they want to grab their baby. And that comes from the fact that Black people are 3% of advertisements. And these are over-sexualized Black women. These are athletes, you know, which arguably scare people too, because they're really big. And these are fake gangster rappers. So, you know, we have these three corporations that make all their money from suburban white kids who want to see this, you know, fake gangster, you know, Scarface type narrative.
Something to just feed the testosterone or like pump the blood, I guess, right?
And it's
what do you think it is?
It's mostly white men as well. And, you know, I think one of the ways we see the problems with this is that, you know, people like me, we buy hip hop that resonates with who we are.
Yeah.
So when people of color own hip hop, we had many different representations of women, for example, right? We had Queen Latifah, MC Lyte, Moni Love, we had The Boss, right? We had all these different lanes, and young girls and boys could see different iterations of women within hip hop culture.
Yeah.
That's because different people wanted different types of women personalities. So there were different economic niches where women could be successful. So there's different identities that were accessible to the young girls who were trying to figure out who they wanted to be. Now, since 70% of hip hop is bought by suburban white men, we only have one economic niche that these suburban white men want to see, and that's Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, and they got to fight each other over that paycheck because it's the same thing. So, you know, when we are selling this culture extra communally, we're selling the worst examples and ideas of Blackness to a community that arguably is going to control whether or not we get to have efficacy, getting jobs and getting health care and going to jail and seeing a judge. So what we're doing is fighting for our culture for two reasons. I think the secondary reason is I would love to be able to come to the dinner table, sing Kumbaya, and not scare the hell out of every other white person that crosses my path in liberal Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a secondary goal, because I think primary goal is that, hip hop is not just a Black thing, it's for everybody. It's, the tenets of hip hop are peace, love, unity, and having fun. So yeah, we've never had a problem with white folks being able to rap or anybody being able to rap. And that's why hip hop is for everybody. So my primary focus is to make sure that our young kids who are hip hop cultured, our OGs who are hip hop cultured, have a stable base of self-determination in which they can access their culture and be empowered through their culture to make it in this crazy world, right? Whether you're a hip hop artist and you don't want to work at Starbucks all day and hopefully have energy enough afterwards to go work on your craft, but you can go be a hip hop mentor and get a paycheck in healthcare to teach kids how to break dance and get stronger proprioception and neuromuscular junctions. And then those kids go on and start talking about body health, and then they become vegan and stuff like that. This is what we do.
Yeah.
So I think these young kids need to know they can make it to Carnegie Hall with a set of turntables, or they can make it to Carnegie Hall with their raps, or they can, be Basquiat, or they can be the next Monet with stenciling and wheat pasting. I think that we need to make sure that in a world where Black kids have half the access to art classes as white kids, in a world where we don't have culturally responsive pedagogy, and in a world where we don't see ourselves reflected in any positive way, hip hop is there for us. And hip hop has this ingrained nugget that's just in the DNA of hip hop of self-affirmation. And for some of these kids, that's some of the first time they get to play around with the concept of self-affirmation. So I know what hip hop does for kids in the hood. And I'm trying to make sure that everybody knows that too, so they can invest in it. And our kids can get this self-propelled pedagogy that'll take them to the stars and also make them believe they're worth it at the same time. So that's what we're doing at Hip Hop for Change. I can tell you the minutia and the tactics and the strategies, but we're trying to create that base of self-determination, because hip hop is positive. It's the catalyst for self-determination, for fighting oppression, for self-efficacy and self-love. It is what it is. It comes from an unbroken chain of Blackness, just trying to make sure that Black people know we're beautiful, from call and response in the fields to gospel and turning Christianity into like jumping Baptist songs, and then getting into jazz and then disco and soul and funk. These are all affirmations of our beauty. And that's why we need this more than ever nowadays.
With this latest valuable episode, we'd love to thank you for joining us on the Creating Community for Good podcast. If you found today's show valuable, simply visit our website, creatingcommunityforgood.com, to leave a review, as well as to get access to additional resources and relevant links from this show. Stay tuned for more episodes.